Hi, folks. You were Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of not so much ageism per se, but highly qualified white people who are just, no longer wanted, as in, the overall ideological situation, are no longer wanted in the workplace, in the business workplace, and certainly not in government or anything like that. Now, a guy that I've known for a long time, he's only a couple of years older than me, so he'll be 65 soon, but he's in tip-top physical condition. Like runs marathons, all that sort of stuff, and he was talking about how a little while ago he'd been for an interview. Now, this guy doesn't have to work. He's well off enough that he doesn't have to work if he doesn't want to. But he wants to work. He's very skilled, very capable, very qualified, very accomplished. He's the sort of guy that in my view, any company would be should be happy to honoured, if you like, to be able to get someone of that skill level. Now, his background's typically like national sales director, that type of thing. But he could turn around a low-performing sales team and turn them into a high-performing sales team. He's got that level of capability and the credentials to back it up. So anyway, he's again, he doesn't have to work, so he was out sort of doing the rounds, and it's not that he couldn't get interviews, but he goes for an interview and he says there's this young, teenage Indian chick with attitude who's out to show that she's the big girl boss and she's going to put that evil, colonial slavery white guy in his place. And it's, to her, it's a power game of, I'm going to slap you down, sort of evil white guy. And he's saying, well, why does someone of his capability, why does someone of that level of capability have to go through the process of being interviewed by snot-nosed recent immigrants with attitude, who are themselves DEI and affirmative action? Some of them, can't even speak English, this sort of stuff. Why does he have to go? Why is the interview process, especially at the level he's talking about, the senior, level he's talking about, why are the human resource departments or the organizations tolerating such an absurd engagement process? Now, if he was a black lesbian applicant, maybe that wouldn't matter. They'd like that sort of thing. Oh, thank goodness I'm not being interviewed by a straight white male. So it could be just that they're so caught up in, and this is across the board, certainly from what I can see as well, they're so caught up in DEI and affirmative action and quotas and this sort of thing that their entire process is designed to reject straight white, accomplished, highly qualified straight white males because they're not really wanted. They're against the social power, social engineering sort of aspects of affirmative action, DEI. So you don't really want those people. So you want the process to be humiliating so that they just pull out and don't bother replying. Now, I don't know how many men, there are some men who as they approach 65, they're in very poor health and they've got no credentials or something like that. There can be that. But I'm talking very fit, very capable, ready to work, want to work, highly credentialed, straight white males. And they're pretty much, I'm getting this across the board, that the humiliation of the process is too much for them. They don't see why at a senior role, if it was a role for the parking lot attendant or the toilet cleaner, you're going to find it. But at a senior role, why would you have a snot-nosed teenage affirmative action chick doing the interviewing? She can't understand the questions or the answers. It's just a mismatch beyond. Now, when I was younger, the way it used to be, and this was something that HR departments were very serious about, is you would try and match the seniority of the applicant with the seniority of the line manager, or if it was for a senior role, it would be the the human resource director that would handle it. Not the teenage snotty-nosed teenager. If it was a job as a entry-level trainee floor sweeper, then the junior HR person would handle that, and so on. So you'd match the seniority of the people. If it was somebody who was, say, a divisional CEO or something like that, then the group CEO would do the interviews. You would always match people with the. I remember going for somebody was applying for. I was a young. What was I doing at this point? Anyway, I was like a state manager or something like that, and a senior guy was applying for a job, I think in the service and maintenance department, and my boss came along and said, "No, look, he's a pretty senior guy. I know that he's kind of going to report to you, but we've got to make sure that we have senior guys in the room when we're doing the interview, and you can ask questions, but I need to be there." This was the sort of attitude that it was, that the idea of humiliating or degrading someone in an interview, forcing a CEO level person to be interviewed by a 5-year-old, that's the sort of social engineering that insane places like Pol Pot's Cambodia would do. You don't do that in a sane society. Yet that's what's happening at the moment. Now, it may not be happening in every single instance everywhere. There are still networks of buddies who hire each other and that sort of thing. But even in over the last 10 years or so, maybe a bit longer, I've been tapped by someone I know. You interested in this job? Like this is a VP or an EVP type role, and am I interested in? Well, why don't you come and talk to us? And the screening interview, even this is a guy I know. I mean, they've come to me and they've tapped me on the shoulder. The screening interview is some snot-nosed fucking affirmative action bimbo, and straight away they've lost me when they did. No, not interested. If that's how you're going to handle this process, I'm not interested. Now, is this a pride thing though? I mean, if you don't need the job or need to work, that's one thing. But is it a pride thing? I'm not prepared to suffer that humiliation, or I'm not prepared to put up with that. Now, I've noticed this same trend all over the place. When we get, when we win tenders and contracts and so on to do work, we're in high IP type work. This is the upper end of the intellectual property sort of scale, and we'll go and we're all older guys, sharp suits, the whole thing, and with decades of accomplishment and credentials. And the CEO who we've dealt with primarily will say, "Okay, well, I need someone to supervise you while you're doing this job, doing this project." Okay, well, that's not in the contract, and I'm a stickler for details of contract, and I make sure that the contract reflects the work we're going to be doing and how it's going to be structured and processed and so on. So, we need someone to be in charge of you. Well, you don't, but okay, well, and so I'm willing to sort of go along with it just to play nice, and really that's it. And so they'll I mean, in one instance they pulled up this chick in her early 20s, this alien chick, from, I don't know where she was from, I think somewhere in the Middle East, and her English was kind of good enough, I suppose, but she's like covered in tattoos and tattoos across the knuckles, and she's fucking feral as fuck, and you couldn't have picked a lower. The guy has scraped the bottom of the barrel, but he seemed to get off on the idea. From what I could, just looking between the lines, is he felt insecure. I mean, he was an affirmative action sort of, a BlackRock type appointee flunky anyway. So he seemed to feel insecure. In come these guys, well credentialed, the sharp suits. And here's me. I'm like a pretty fit guy, 6'2", and everything. So it's like, oh, I'm feeling insecure. I've got to put these guys in their place. I'm gonna get the angriest parking lot attendant, toilet cleaner chick we've got here, and I'm going to say she's the boss. That'll put these guys in their place. That'll show them that I'm I got that impression that was what he was wanting, because this chick was totally unqualified, to be doing anything, and so I had to pull out the contract and say, well, look, that's no good. If she's an expert in this field or something like that, or she's going to be there to help us and facilitate us, like book meeting rooms for us, like a liaison person, that's okay. But if she's just there to finger wag us and play big boss chick, I didn't use that language, by the way, then that's not it. And so I whip out the contract. He tries a threat, saying, well, if you don't like it, then I'm going to throw you out. Okay, well, that's fine too. Here's what the contract says. You throw us out, then you owe us $150,000. But if that's what you want to do, give us the $150,000 now and we'll walk out the door. Oh, well, And he tries another couple of bluffs. And no. We'll be talking about this in court if that's how you want to play it. So the guy backs down begrudgingly, and he's annoyed. He looks at us, looks at me out of the corner of his eye with menacing sort of stares and glares. But that's all about, we'll put these straight white boys. He's I don't know if he's straight, but he's a white boy. We'll put these straight white boys in their place. It seems to be anybody with any sort of self-assurance or confidence, and people who have high levels of accomplishment and achievement are confident and self-assured, within their area of expertise at least. So, but that seems to be like a sort of double red rag to a bull or something. It's like, oh, we've got to deal with this. The Nazis have to be put in their place. And so I'm of the view that the reason so many straight white males, again, high accomplished, credentialed, well qualified straight white males, certainly above mid 50s in age, they're just not bothering. It's just too hard. Unless they can get in the door through networks of buddies and effectively patronage type systems, unless they can get in the door for employment, for that, they don't bother. It's just not worth the heartache and the humiliation. Now, some will. Maybe they need the money, and now it's different when you need the money. For my own sort of perspective, when I had, dependent wife and children and mortgages and car payments and school fees and so on, then if I was in a situation where I had to sort of beg and grovel to make sure that the big bucks came in the door, I would do it. The family had to be looked after no matter what, and I would take almost any level of, well, maybe not almost any, but close to it, level of humiliation, if it came to that. And I obviously didn't want it or seek it, but if it came to that, I would do that. If it came to, say, Christmas time, Santa Claus at our house was very generous. That tree, that Christmas tree, had a fuckload of presents around it, and the delight in especially my youngest son, his delight as he would start to unwrap oh, Dad, how did Santa Claus know? I don't know how Santa Claus knew. He knows everything. And the delight in his eyes, and so there was nothing, I wouldn't accept any situation that would prevent that again, a wall of presents around the Christmas tree. And it was my job to pull the bucks in the door that would facilitate that. So it's different. As people get older, they're more financially secure and better off. Then they don't have the kids are grown up and gone, as in my case. Then you don't have to put up with that anymore if you don't want to. And it does make quite a big difference. So I'm sure if I was buried under debt and was desperate to put food on the table for the family or something like that, then I would tolerate the 18-year-old snot-nosed girl boss, affirmative action, low IQ shithead chick. I would have to tolerate it. What else could I do under those circumstances? As I'm sure many other men would. But this idea of the humiliation or the degradation of, why do I have to suffer the attitude of this guy was particularly making that, why do I have to put up with that crap? I'm offering my exceptional skills and services to the employers. If they can't put a value on that, and it's the only people who can get in the door, the ones that are have to crawl on their bellies, to these low IQ girl bosses, then I don't want to participate in that. Now, this is, again, very different from how it used to be. If people had skills and so on, and this is how I do interviews, by the way, in the corporate world, or even now, in the corporate world, a senior guy would come in, and I'm very mindful. He's offering his skills. He has decades of experience and expertise and qualifications. And so I wouldn't dream of delegating. Wouldn't dream of delegating that to a junior. Wouldn't dream. It would be, humiliating, I guess, in one way, but also it would be, I think, an act of, gross rudeness almost to do that. So I would handle that directly, assuming they're going to report to me or have a dotted line of reporting to me. I would go out and meet them in the foyer. I wouldn't delegate this to some little flunky to bring. I would go out personally and would greet them and shake their hand. Thank you for coming, and I appreciate your time. And I've been looking forward to talking to you, and so on. I would go with them to my office. It could be up an elevator, and thank them again. Can I get you a coffee or a tea, or a drink, or something? Soda or whatever, water, and would do that. And then I would start to say, well, look, you're a top drawer sort of guy. I want to explain to you the challenges and the things that we're trying to solve here, the obstacles to meeting our goals, and all that sort of stuff. We explain that this is where we're at. I want to know how you can help us get to our objectives. And so I treat them as qualified professionals. This is something that certainly the feedback I'm getting is it doesn't happen anymore. Wherever these highly qualified guys go, they're being treated almost as if they're wayward children that barely know anything. You've just left primary school, so I'm going to give you a good old finger wagging, and I'm going to just show you who's boss, and I'm going to talk to you in a tone that a school teacher would use to talk to a kindergarten kid, this sort of thing. And I now I've seen that around the place, and there's been a few CEOs who tried that on me. When we've got we're out there working on the contract, and they'll try and say, well, why are you talking as if I'm a 5-year-old? Oh, I'm not, am I? Well, yeah. Why are you doing that? I mean, what's even the point? So that sort of respect, of people's capabilities, of their achievements, their accomplishments, that's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. You're just an old white guy. You're a fascist Nazi, and this type of thing. And what you've accomplished is now irrelevant. It's the social power engineering structure of the situation there, of that workplace. That's the only issue. Another one guy who's a CEO, and I mentioned this to him. He's a CEO, and he said, well, if you can't get on with a snotty 18-year-old teenager, you can't get on with anybody, so we wouldn't want you anyway. Oh, fuck. What a fucking attitude. So I don't know. I'm sort of putting it out there, if you like, as a question. Are these people too prideful? Are they so full of pride they can't sort of see beyond the snotty teenager? Or is the system, like, even after you've passed snotty teenager 1, then you'll go to snotty teenager 2? It's not like you're going to go straight to the senior people. Certainly the feedback that I've been getting. So I would argue now that there are some of the most capable, high-achieving people in the Australian economy are really sitting on the sidelines because there isn't a mechanism to bring them into the business sector, the commercial sector, to do what they do best, which is to add value and add a professional layer of organisational development wherever they go. That's gone. It's been lost, and there doesn't appear to be a mechanism to bring it back. You've been with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.